Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness. Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Please hit the thumbs up, please like, subscribe, and share. We have a mission into getting the information out there to a lot of people that might not know. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips a balance in favor of fair use. Thanks everyone for coming in. I really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for bringing this to my awareness, Chris. I really do appreciate you doing that. We need to learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take out the cause of the fatherless, in the case of the widow. Without further ado, so good to see you. Thank you. So let me go ahead and present the screen because I don't just talk about it. I want to show the facts. I want to show the proof behind what I'm saying. So I had went here and seen a lot of the information here on Miracle Village, officially city of refuge since 2014, is a community on Muck City Road, about 3 miles east of Tuckahoma, Florida, that serves as a haven for registered sex offenders. It is located within one of the most isolated and poorest parts of Palm Beach County. The site was chosen because of its isolation, given that the sex offender residence restrictions do not apply. Do what? The restrictions do not apply? Wow, that is wrong. The complex The complex of 54 duplexes and 6 family homes is operated by Matthew 25 Ministries, an organization with a stated goal of providing prison aftercare. The executive director in 2017 was Ted Rodron, himself an ex-offender. In October 2010, the community included 66 registered sex offenders. By July 2013, there were 100, and by 2017, it held 120. The total population as of 2018, including family members, was 200. It is the largest community of registered sex offenders in the United States. There are an additional 300 who have resided there but since moved on. An affiliated organization, Miracle Village Ministries, provides services including transportation to newly released prisoners. It describes itself on its website as a faith-based prison aftercare ministry. Previously, the complex was known as Pelican Lake. It was built by U.S. Sugar in 1964 as housing for migrants working the sugarcane fields, now replaced by machinery. After working out a deal with Matthew 25 Ministries to lease the property, the owner, Alston Management Incorporated, informed residents with school-aged children that they would have to leave or be evicted. That's good. Federal law prohibits discrimination against families with children, except in certain cases, such as communities for the elderly. Witherow was sued by the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County and the Florida Equal Justice Center on behalf of some residents. What? Wow. Federal law prohibits discrimination, like it says right there, against families with children except in certain cases, such as communities for the elderly. Withrow was sued by Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County and the Florida Equal Justice Center on behalf of some residents. In 2011, a federal judge found that Matthew 25 Ministries and Alston Management had violated the Federal Fair Housing Act. I wouldn't want to live in that community. Relations with Poco Key. Miracle Village's relations with nearby Poco Key were initially difficult, but have improved considerably. The day Pat Powers, a resident and the village manager, first approached the city council in nearby Poco Key, we were the plague. They wanted to hang us. They wanted to knock the crap out of us. They had to give us a police escort to leave. The mayor in 2009, Wayne Whitaker, stated that he was unaware that offenders were being recruited to live there and that he believed having so many live together would be very, very risky. Then there's radio. National Public Radio's All Things Considered covered the town in 2009. Noah Rabinowitz, on assignment for the German magazine Süddeutsche Zeitung, South German Times, American photographer Noah Rabinowitz took a series of photos of Miracle Village. They were published in 2013 with a 4,000 word article in the magazine. But I ain't going to get on further down with that. So let's go to the village where half the population are sex offenders. Miracle Village lies deep in the sea of green. This is sugarcane country, South Florida, at the edge of the Everglades, and over 2 miles from the nearest town. Around 200 people live in the small, neat bungalows. More than 100 of them are registered sex offenders, people who were found guilty and have usually served a prison sentence for sex crime. There's one woman, the rest are men. Some of them viewed child pornography or molested their own children. Others abused minors when they were in positions of power. There's a teacher here, a pastor, a sports coach. Oh, I'm not on full screen. I'm sorry. Let me see. Yes, I could go full screen. Yeah. Okay. Let me go back over here. So let's go over here. Okay. So let's go back right here. Then more than 100 of them are registered sex offenders, people who were found guilty and have usually served a prison sentence for sex crime. There's one woman, the rest are men. Some of them viewed child pornography or molested their own children. Thank you. I'm glad that helps. I'm glad that I seen you say that so that, I could enlarge it for you. Others abused minors when they were in positions of power. There's a teacher here, a pastor, a sports coach. There are those who have been to prison for exposing themselves. A number of residents were convicted because they had sex with underage girlfriends. Under Florida state law, none of them can live within 1,000 feet of a school, daycare center, park, or playground. Cities and counties have extended those restrictions up to 2,500 feet, about half a mile. And in some places, swimming pools, bus stops, and libraries are out of bounds too. The effect has been to push sex offenders out of densely populated areas. The effect is trying to protect our citizens, right? The laws of Florida have made Miracle Village an attractive option. It was set up in 2009 by the late Dick Witherow, a pastor with Matthew 25 Ministries. Here's how it basically looks from the sky. He saw the difficulties sex offenders face when trying to find a place to live. Although they could travel pretty much anywhere during the day, At night, they must be at an address that complies with the residency restrictions. Applications to Miracle Village from potential residents arrive daily. We get between 10 and 20 a week, said Jerry Ewens, the intake coordinator for the ministry and also a registered sex offender. We try not to accept people with a history of violence or drugs or to take any diagnosed pedophile, that is, someone who can only become sexually aroused by a child. We want to protect the people who are already here and those who were living here before us. That is, Edgar Wolford moved into the village before the sex offenders arrived. Edgar Wolford moved in 10 years ago, back in the days when it was known as Pelican Lake. It was home to cane cutters and their families. He arrived in South Florida from Jamaica in 1962 and spent his working life harvesting the sugar that stretches as far as the eye can see. Retired now, he spends his days tending an extensive garden of cassava, sweet potatoes, and bananas, a whole range of fruit and vegetables that he gives to his neighbors. It's a very peaceful place. No one troubles nobody, he said. And how does he find the dozens of sex offenders who have moved in over the last few years? They're good people. I've made plenty of friends. The only thing we miss is the kids, and the school bus don't come here no more. A few children do live at Miracle Village. Florida's laws don't stop sex offenders from living in the same neighborhood as minors, although their terms of probation may ban them from having any contact with them. Christopher Dawson, a 22-year-old, is a registered sex offender prohibited from speaking to anyone under the age of 18. When he was 19, he had what he says is a consensual sexual relationship with a 14-year-old. He believed she was older. I knew her for a year and we dated for a few months. Her parents testified against me and I was sentenced to 2 years house arrest, followed by 8 years probation. When he violated the terms of his probation by speaking to the younger brother of a friend, he spent 4 months in the county jail. Then the judge ordered him to move to Miracle Village. The alternative was a lengthy prison sentence. It's been a blessing in disguise. It was upsetting to leave my parents, but I feel as though I have a destiny with Miracle Village. I feel at home and safe here. I love the people, he says. Even though I have the label of a sex offender, I'm not a monster. I made a mistake and I face the consequences. A talented musician, Christopher plays drums for the band that leads the services in the small church at the heart of Miracle Village. This is a Christian community dedicated to helping sex offenders rebuild their lives, but non Christians are accepted. And everyone is welcomed at church. There are anger management and Bible study classes. And as a condition of their probation, most of the sex offenders attend psychological treatment programs. Some of the offenders have jobs in local towns. With its neatly cut lawns and luscious tropical vegetation, this is idyllic rural community. It's easy to forget that some of its residents have committed serious and shocking crimes. Pat Powers, the executive director of Matthew 25 Ministries, was a top youth racquetball coach. In the early 90s, he was convicted of sexual contact with 11 minors. As a born again Christian, he says he's using his experience as a sex offender to influence others. I can see through these guys' stories. So we get someone here and they say, I'm not guilty. All I did was look at a picture. I said, no, you're guilty, period. Because the only way you're going to change it is to admit you are wrong. At the Methodist Church in the nearby town of Pahokee, some of the sex offenders from Miracle Village provide live music for the services. They are appreciated members of the congregation, and one of them is a preacher here. But having so many sex offenders close by has unnerved some locals. Kathy was raped at knife point when she was a teenager. Decades after the event, she is still struggling to come to terms with her experience, and she isn't impressed with Miracle Village. I don't think it's a miracle at all, she says. Maybe it is for sex offender, but for me it's more like a nightmare on Elm Street. Pahokie's mayor, Colin Walks, believes people are coming to terms with their unusual neighbors living just outside of town. I know at first there are a lot of opposition to them because the whole thing was about protecting our number one asset, our kids. But we're moving on, and this is a country of second and third chances for people who make mistakes. As long as law enforcement is involved and there are no problems, the community will accept them. It's the job of police officer Detective Courtney Minton from Palm Beach County Sexual Predator and Offender Tracking Unit to monitor the sex offenders living at Miracle Village. She visits weekly to verify addresses and check residents have registered all their details in accordance with the law. A scorching Thursday morning in June, she cruises around in a red pickup truck, stopping at the houses on her list. Some people are not in because they are at work, so she leaves a calling card at one home. She talks to an offender's wife. Back in her truck, she reflects on her job. Often she has an intimate knowledge of someone's crimes. The offender I just checked on in a case I worked on a few years ago as a detective. He was molesting his daughters. So I made the charges against him and worked the investigation. Then he went to prison, he got out, and now it's my job to be checking on him, she said. Detective Benton has a caseload of 300. There are 900 registered sex offenders in Palm Beach County. Across Florida, there are over 55,000 55,000. Enforcement of the residency law is expensive, and there's a debate about whether the restrictions actually make the population safer. Campaigners say there is no empirical evidence to show that recidivism rates are lower among sex offenders who live away from places like schools. Supporters of the laws claim it is common sense. If you let a sexual predator live close to anywhere lots of children gather, more will be at risk. Many of those residing at Miracle Village do so because they cannot find anywhere else in Florida that complies with the law. For others, it is home. So, what would happen to a community if the residency were revoked so sex offenders could live anywhere they choose? Sex offenders would still live here, said Pat Powers. It's very peaceful out here in the middle of nowhere. You can hear more about the story on BBC. What's your take on that, y'all? I didn't put some yet. Close. Okay, but here said 110 convicted sex offenders live in harmony in this small Florida town. No crimes have been committed in Miracle Village. That's 2015. Buried in the sugarcane fields of southern Florida on the southeast corner of Lake Okeechobee, I guess said it right, lies a small community called Miracle Village. Here, 52 pale duplexes once housed migrant workers. Now they're home to 110 convicted sex offenders. It's basically saying the same thing. Photographed and interviewed over many months in 2013 and 2014 by photographer Sofia Valente for her World Press Photo winning book, Miracle Village. 12 residents of this isolated colony have agreed to tell their stories. In this introduction, 37-year-old resident Joseph Steinberg describes his community. There's a certain smell to the air, like cotton candy and smoke. Sugarcane fields cover the landscape in every direction as far as the eye can see. 3 miles down the road and right beside a private village, there are train tracks. Locomotives ride the rails at the midnight hours. The turbines echo through the village. The people who live there don't mind the early morning call of the sugarcane express. To them, it sounds like progress, and they love that sound. In the Syracuse for a town, the closest thing to exotic cuisine you'll find is Tabasco sauce, jokes Ben, 35 of his life in Miracle Village. Fortunately, the sex offender I live with is an unemployed Italian chef who watches cooking shows all day long. I actually eat so good now that I needed to buy all new pants, so my old ones became too tight. This is my ex-husband put the charges on me, says Rose 48. He lied against me about it, that I had molested my children. That she got the blame, is what she's saying, and yet he's the one that did it. And that does happen, okay? I'm out on the internet for the rest of my life. People judge you. You're a monster. Before it bothered me, it don't bother me now. If you think I am, if it makes you feel better, go ahead. I know better. It's just a name, says Rose. Residents pay rent their duplexes for $500 a month. They may stay as long as they want. Here in theory, they will learn life skills, lost while incarcerated, and reintegrate in society at their own pace. The Florida law prohibits sex offenders from living less than 1,000 feet from any place that children congregate. So Miracle Village is still deeply isolated, 5 miles from the nearest town. See if there's this is where Miracle. So welcome there. They got a book out. Okay. Then they got this one says Patty Wright. She lets her daughter date a sex offender. So Patty Wright introduced her daughter Lexi to Chris, who is a convicted sex offender. Most parents want their children to find a loving, happy, and healthy relationship with someone who treats them with respect. And Patty apparently believes her daughter Lexi, 25, has found a man who fits that description. Patty described Lexi's boyfriend, Chris, 26, as hardworking, respectful, and one of the best men you'll ever meet. And the pair are considering starting a family one day. Oh no, gonna be around a kid then. Chris is also a convicted sex offender who lives in an isolated community in Florida populated by other offenders, and strict laws prevent them from living less than 2,500 feet away from places where children congregate. At 19, Chris and his then girlfriend of 3 months were sat in a car together in a park when a police officer approached and asked them for an ID. It was then that he found out the girl he was dating was only 14 years old and claims she hadn't been honest with him about her age. Chris was sentenced to 2 years community control and 8 years of sex offender probation, which restricts his movements for life. That happens too. There will be liars about the age. I feel sorry with instances like that. But sorry, I don't feel incidences where he molested his daughters, where the teacher molested 11 kids. No, I don't feel sorry. Patty, Lexi, and Chris all appear in the new BBC free documentary Stacy Julie Investigates. Second chance sex offenders would see Stacy visit Chris's community in Florida to determine whether sex offenders deserve a second chance at life. They have one of the healthiest relationships I've seen, Patty tells Metro.co.uk. Is it ideal? No. But on the other hand, there's no relationship that's perfect. That's what her mom says. But anyway, we go on and on. A colony of sex offenders take the stage in America. It's hard to see. It goes on and on. So, what is y'all's take about this? I hope and pray, and try not to be judgmental, but I hope and pray some sex offenders cannot be rehabilitated, but then there are some that I think one person in this got arrested for urinating in public, and he's a sex offender for that. I read into this a little more, so but in no way defend anybody that harms a child or children. Um, so let's not be harsh. Let's not be brash. Let's hope and pray that they're doing right and they're not continuing on with their sickness. Um, well, thank you so much. And I think that's a bad thing for him thinking about starting a family, especially he's a registered sex offender. He's not supposed to be around kids. Okay, and the fact is that all them other sex offenders that live in that area got to keep everybody safe, right? Keep the kids safe. That's number one, the most important, keeping the kids safe. Thank you, and God bless you.